Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Movement Mastermind, your weekly Q&A to answer your toughest job search questions. My name is Shira Lotzar, your host. And a little bit about me. I am an association recruiter. I'm a career coach and branding expert. Love helping people write their resumes and LinkedIn profiles and networking and help with interviewing and all kinds of job search strategies. I'm also the co-founder and volunteer of boomerworks.org. We are a nonprofit program that helps professionals age 50 plus re-career to self-employment. So if you're interested in that, it's a community service, all volunteer and all free. So go to boomerworks.org. Today we have our guest experts. Julien Bois is actually not able to join us today, but we have Corliss Jackson, who is a career coach in the federal government sector. So any and all federal job search questions, she's your girl. KiKi L'Italien is a consultant. She's a social media expert and a video expert, and she's your girl for all of that. And Mike Robinson is a career coach in the government contracting and high-tech sectors, and he's your guy for all things GovCon. All right, so today, first of all, of course, please remain muted when you're in the chat room, when you're in the main room, and then post your questions in chat. Today, we're going to actually shift things around just a little bit. So instead of starting with a 5-minute breakout session, we're going to do a 10-minute. And the reason is, what I'd like you to do is share in your breakout any top question that you might have for us, for the group, when we come back to the main room, but also what we're calling any power lessons. And actually, Kimberly Berry inspired me with this, because Kimberly's going to actually share one today. You know, I realized that as job seekers, you have your own tips. You have your own lessons that you've learned, things that have worked for you that might work for others. So this is sort of kind of to help everybody inspire each other around what's possible. And actually, when we get back, Kimberly has already agreed to share her tip. But I'd like you to, you know, kind of share with each other any lessons that you've learned, and then we can incorporate them into the discussion. You are going to hear a couple of power tips from we the experts. Myself and Mike Robinson are going to be sharing a couple tips. We will then open up with Q&A, but starting with advanced questions. So those of you who put some questions into the Google Sheet ahead of this meeting, we'll address those questions first. Around 10 o'clock, we'll offer a 15-minute speed networking breakout session. Really encourage you guys to stick around for that. I've heard some terrific stories of people making some powerful connections. And then please keep in touch with our Power Networking spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet in Google. Here's the bit.ly link for you. Make sure to grab it and you know, continue to keep in touch with folks. And then finally, a recording of today's session will be posted on my website right here at purposefulhire.com/Hire Moment Mastermind. So with that, we're actually going to go into our breakout rooms. And so if you give me just a minute, I'm going to put you guys in these rooms. All right, so make sure to hit the join button to go into your room, and you can share any questions and any lessons that you've learned with each other. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Hope that was a good sort of power networking opportunity for you. So as we start, I actually want to start with these power lessons, all right? So I'm going to start with Kimberly. Kimberly is actually going to be talking about how she successfully leveraged an internal champion to get an interview. And after she is done, if anyone else wants to open up their mic, we can't necessarily have all of you speak, right? But if maybe a couple people want to share any sort of power lessons that you've learned along the way from your job search, we would love to hear from you. So Kimberly, feel free to turn up your mic and we're happy to hear your story.
Sure, thank you. My story really revolves around trying to make those personal connections. Over the last, I think, month or so, I've really made a more concerted effort to network with other people. I now a part of a weekly morning chat group with other association professionals. And probably a few weeks ago, I attended another group of association women's technology champions. So these are women who work maybe in association IT. I was invited to their meeting, and at the end of the meeting, I was provided with an opportunity to introduce myself since I was new, and I told everyone I was in transition and what I was looking for. And the next day, I was contacted by someone who had also attended the meeting and let me know about a position at their company that was in the membership realm, which is one of my lanes. And I had actually applied for the job probably almost 2 months prior, but I guess it got caught up. And so she got my resume in front of the hiring manager and I got an interview out of it. And so I'm still going through that process right now. I don't know where it leads, but this was really just focused on making that connection. I didn't know this person, personally, but because I put myself out there and attended a group that I was a little hesitant, about attending, I was able to make that connection. And so I think it just really illustrates, even though it might not be a comfortable thing for you, to really start connecting with other groups or like-minded groups. Every industry has some sort of outlying community that you can get involved in. So it's really paying off. And it just also allows you an avenue to kind of remain in your lane, keep learning, making those connections. So it was actually pretty powerful to realize that just that one interaction resulted in me getting in front of a hiring manager, where my resume alone through the regular system did not accomplish that.
Yes, Kimberly, thank you. This is why I wanted you to share your story, because I think it's just so transferable to everyone on this call. It really goes to the power of networking, right? As you mentioned, really connecting with the people who are like-minded, who either do what you do or know the same individuals who are trying to solve the same problems in the world. Right? When people get together in that meaningful way, oftentimes there's wonderful synergies that can happen. In addition, there is this power of leveraging an internal champion. And that is what we've been talking about almost every week, it seems like, that it's not, your resume usually is not enough. It can be, I mean, you never know, right? But oftentimes it takes an internal person, it takes somebody who is looking out for you, right? Who knows the hiring manager, to get your resume noticed among the competition, because otherwise you're just a piece of paper, right? You're just a document. Now you're a real person, and somebody's actually leveraging that relationship with you, even if it's just on an acquaintance level, to say, hey, can you give Kimberly, can you give this person a little bit of time in an interview? At least it opens the door. So thank you for sharing that, Kimberly. So let me just open it up to other folks. If anyone wants to raise their mic, just go ahead and just jump on in. Let's hear from a couple other people. If there's any other lessons that you've learned that would be helpful for others.
I just wanted to ask whether you reach out to these contact after you apply, Or you try to make the connection before the opportunity comes up?
That's a great question. Actually, the best practice, as they would say, is to apply first and to get a champion second. And the reason why is because HR professionals and recruiters like to know that you are in the database, right? So that when your internal champion mentions you, you can sort of get airlifted out, right? So if you already apply and then go and say, hey, leverage your contact and ask your contact to share it with the recruiter, the recruiter can say, go great. They can go sort of dig in the database and find you. If not, they're going to actually ask you to apply anyway. So it's usually good practice to apply first, champion second. Anyone else? Anyone have another power lesson from your job search you'd like to share with the group?
Okay, so hi, this is Dorothy. I will say that I feel that sending resumes out is more depressing and less help than networking. So I have spent since April, actually March, because I knew I was getting laid off before that, looking for jobs by sending resumes out, thinking this is perfect. It says exactly what I do on there. Then volunteering and helping other people and forming groups and talking to people on meeting on networks, because we all have different skills, and maybe I can't find a job, but I also know a lot of people at a lot of big companies that might be looking for somebody else's talent. And what I really appreciate is there's so many people that I've met that are actually working, like you, Shira, and giving their time to help people like us to do the right things, follow some tips that you've given us on LinkedIn, and come to these meetings to share our stories of where we're getting more success. And honestly, no, I haven't gotten a job, but I've gotten some really good contacts by joining some of these meetings, and I've had some really good conversations and things that we can bounce off of each other, of lessons learned, of, you know, why we may not have gotten the job, or even practice and interviewing with a group of people has been really helpful.
That's fantastic. It sounds like also the lesson in there is what I'd call being a go-giver, right?
Right, helping other people out. And actually, when you're in a state of mind, as some of us are, it's like, oh my God, I'm running out of money, I'm running out of time. Helping other people definitely helps me feel better about what's going on. I've done something for somebody else, and you know, karma's a good thing sometimes.
Well, God bless you and what you're doing, and you know, keep giving, because you know, as some might know, there's a scripture that says, give and it'll be given back to you. So really, it's really good to keep sowing into other people. I'm so glad for you to share your story. So I'm actually going to come at it from the other side. Here's my power tip. So getting that internal champion is absolutely huge. No question about it. However, when you do actually apply for the job, whether you're going straight up into a job board, or even because you hear about the opportunity and someone says, hey, I'd like to recommend you, do you happen to have a resume, right? Meaning you show up before your resume does. Either way, if you're applying to a job, you need to tailor it for every single opportunity. It's very, very important. When that recruiter is looking over your resume, they're looking for certain keywords. They're looking for certain competencies. They're looking to see that you are going to help solve their urgent business problems quickly. And so I gave a presentation a few weeks ago at the Career Network Ministry, and I want to share this slide with you because, and you're welcome to take a picture of it. And if anybody wants the full presentation, I'm happy to share it. So on this slide, it's really the second column here that I wanted to share. So what I mentioned in the first part is it's always good to start with a master resume, kind of have your kitchen sink, all your spices, right, in this one resume, have it kind of saved. But then you want to tailor it for every single posting. And this is a really important tip. And it's important because, you know, while recruiters only take 2.5 seconds to read your resume, and really that's not an exaggeration, Oftentimes I've noticed that job seekers do a very similar thing when reading the job posting. It's very easy to see a job and just say, okay, this is the same job I've seen over and over and over again. It must all be the same. It's actually not. Recruiters usually take the time to emphasize what they are looking for. The problem is that we as human beings have this kind of optical illusion thing. We read this document and we sort of gloss over everything. And so on the second column, right, it's very, very, very important to read the posting thoroughly, really, really read it, analyze it, get into it. Don't fall into what I call bullet number 5 syndrome. What do I mean by that? So bullet number 5 syndrome is when you read a posting and you fixate on what I'm calling bullet number 5, and you get all excited, like, wow, that's my job. Meanwhile, your eye has actually glossed over bullets 1, 3, 7, 9, and the summary and the requirements, not even actually seeing that this may not be the right opportunity, either because your skill set isn't exactly what they're looking for, or maybe it's just not the right job for you. If you really read and say, oh wow, these are the business problems they're trying for me to solve, but those aren't really the ones that are my assignment. That's not really what I'm called to do. If you go through it thoroughly by looking first of all at the summary, really read the summary section. What are they asking you to do? What are their business goals? Look at the first 3 or 4 bullets in the responsibility section, and then the first few bullets of the qualification section. Those 2 areas are going to tell you more about the job than most of the other bullets, because they're going to prioritize what's important to them first. What is actually required, and then what's preferred. Now, these days, oftentimes what's preferred is actually required. And the reason why is because it is a pretty saturated market. And so if an employer says, look, I need this industry experience, I need you to have these key skills, I need you to have this type of background, look at that critically and say, do I really have what they want? Now, do you have to be 100% match? No, not necessarily. However, if you're only a 60% match, you may want to think about how much time you're spending in applying for that role. Because it does take time to customize your resume. It does take time to go through the process of getting an internal champion and going through all of that. Make sure that the job is really, really a good fit. And try not to fixate as much on transferable soft skills, because soft skills are wonderful and I'm sure they are transferable for you. But when a recruiter is vetting your resume, they're vetting for your hard skills, your functional skills, the things you do, and the industry experience that you have, okay? So hopefully that's helpful. And let's go back to our power tips here. And Mike Robinson actually has a tip for us around how to prepare for your interviews and using Excel. So Mike, do you wanna share with us your Excel tip? Actually, I'll stop sharing so you can start sharing.
All right, so this is flowing nicely. We've talked about job search and then resumes, and now we'll talk about interviews. So there's a favorite tip I have for interview preparation, and it was, it was my number 1 tip before a pandemic or before this new environment, and now it's even more so my number 1 tip. So you've all probably heard about situation, action, result, and STAR. So a really good way to prepare for an interview is to actually put together a spreadsheet that helps you organize all your thoughts and all your stories. And also in today's environment, the big bonus is now you can actually just, as you're in your interview, looking at the interviewer, you can be referencing your notes and letting those jog your memory. So, if you're looking at my screen on the left column, I will think about all the questions that they might ask and what are the main competencies they're looking for. And you can get that from the job description or the job posting. You can see they're looking for written communication skills or for analytical skills or creativity. And so you come up with an interview question. You just Google what's a good creativity skills interview question or something like that. And then you put one in there, and then you come up with your best stories or examples that demonstrate you have that competency. And that goes in the next 3 columns. So you have your situation column, your action column, and your result column. And so this really helps to get you prepared for an interview, because it helps you by focusing on exactly what they're looking for. And it helps you to actually have your stories, really down pat, really, just easy to, they're organized. You can just go through them from left to right. And then, of course, nowadays with video interviews, you're literally, you've got, while you're looking at them, you're seeing, okay, they're asking about something. I can scroll down, you know, you can color code for different categories they might ask you about. And you can just start answering their question. And if you're, you know, if you're kind of forgetting something or getting lost, you've got your notes right in front of you. So this is a really good way to use Excel to prepare for your interview and then to do well in your interview.
Fantastic. Somebody in the chat asked whether you would be able to share this. If you're okay doing that, if you wouldn't mind, you can in the chat box just use the file button and upload it if you're okay with that. Unless there's proprietary information in here that people can't see that.
No, I'm fine with sharing this. Sure. Yep.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. And the other thing too, and this is a small technical note following up on what Mike shared. He mentioned that when you're in your interview, you could see this in the background. Not everybody may know how to do that. When you're in, for example, a Zoom call, which most people are using these days, when you're in your Zoom call, what you'd want to do in order for you to see what's going on behind the video interview is minimize your screen. So you go to your Zoom page, you're on your Zoom page, go to the minimize button in the upper right-hand corner. And what that'll do is it'll minimize the picture of the person that you're interviewing with into a tiny little box. Move that box underneath your webcam so that, number one, it looks like you're looking at the person. But what that does is it allows you access to the rest of your computer. So you can pull up a Word document, you can pull up the Excel spreadsheet, you can see what's going on, but it's not gonna look like you're reading because it's gonna look like you're looking at the webcam, okay? So minimize, take the little box, push it over, and then you can have access to everything. Okay, terrific. Thank you for that, Mike. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and go back to
Mike's. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I was just going to ask if I can add something to Mike's piece that I've learned. With the STAR approach, the focus is on the R, so the results, right? So I think a lot of times I should say I statements. So I have often in the past have seen many candidates who focus very much on what the situation was, what the task was, but they don't really focus on what they did, right? What actions did they take, and what were the specific results that were achieved. So I just want to caveat that as much as there are these 4 letters, the focus of this exercise or the story should be on the action and the results. I hope that helps, or Mike, if you want to also emphasize on that. But yeah, I just wanted to add that piece.
No, thank you for adding that, because I noticed my results column was pretty sparse, right? But that should not be the case. So this spreadsheet is lacking in some ways. So just an FYI. You're exactly right. The results column should be what you focus on. Yeah.
And also to kind of bolster that as well. When we talk about results, we're talking about outcomes. And so where possible, if you can include a metric in your results, that's always very helpful. So some sort of percentage, a dollar figure, you increase by this, or you decrease something by that, it's always great. Now, frankly, not everybody can do that. And there are a lot of professions, frankly, where it's just kind of impossible to have those kinds of metrics. That's okay. But at least if you can speak to some sort of advancement of a business challenge, right? Some solution that you provided that led to the organization being better in some way. That's always very helpful. So thanks.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, because that's a particular question I've been struggling with. Somebody recently read my resume and they said that, you know, I should add more metrics. Now, like you said, in my profession is to prevent catastrophe before they happen. Because to me, when it happens, it's already too late. Now, a simple thing could be $1 million of dollars if you don't catch it on time. But when you catch it on time, you can never know what you averted. Because even when we're negotiating with the C-suite, they never really understand our value proposition, because when catastrophe happens, everybody can quantify what has happened. But when you prevent that from happening, well, the average person doesn't see it, because you acted quickly. So for people in that kind of space like us, like, what would you suggest? So, you know, how can we really massage that to show value?
You know, that's a good question. I think there's always ways to include metrics. So you might have to do drills, right? You might have to do rehearsals or drills to prepare for these catastrophes, right? So did you improve the time? Did you, were you more effective somehow quantitatively in your fire drill or in your preparation drill? So, I mean, there's always ways to show that you're sharpening your saw, or you're doing things faster and more efficiently. Yeah, so that your situation is kind of unique, but I think there's ways to still have metrics.
And then just emphasizing the fact that that was your goal, right? Is to prepare so that a catastrophe doesn't happen and things have gone smoothly. I think people will understand, especially if you're applying for a job where that's the focus of the role is the preparation. They may not be as focused on a metric because they understand that that's not really part of your story. But it's a good question. Thank you for bringing that up, Jean. Okay, and so we have a few advanced questions that we're going to try to address pretty quickly. The first person asked, have offers changed as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, and what should we be prepared to negotiate other than salary, bonus, and vacation time? Look, this is a recession, and in every recession, the if you will, power balance tends to change a little bit between recruiters and job seekers. Right now, it's a great economy. Recruiters feel like, oh wow, I've got to go the extra mile to go recruit people. When the tides turn, they kind of think that they're a bit more in the driver's seat. And so oftentimes, yes, salaries tend to get negotiated a little more strongly because there's a lot of competition. And as far as negotiating other than salary, bonus, and vacation time, you can sometimes negotiate start date. You can, sort of ask for, you can meet. Well, the bonus actually is one thing you could look at. I know the person asked about ways to go beyond the bonus, but that's something that actually can be looked at a little bit more strongly, because if you ask the employer what are the measurable goals that you're going to be accountable for, depending upon what those goals are, you might be able to say, look, I realize that the compensation can't be as high on the base. However, if I achieve and exceed these goals, can we look at a higher bonus? So that is a way that you can negotiate a little bit. Mike, did you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I'll just say that the companies that can afford to pay for top talent, the Microsofts and the Amazons of the world, they are still paying as they did before. Their salaries have not changed. The companies, there's only so many of those companies, right? So there's a lot of other companies that are just overwhelmed with so many people, and their finances aren't what they were 9 months ago. And so they are going to really be able to pay less for top talent, right? So so just be prepared that again, like Shira said, they're in the driver's seat. It's a tough market right now for job seekers to negotiate a high salary.
But that said, start high. You can always negotiate low. So don't go in with the mindset that you're going to get a lower salary. Go with the top end. You are worth it. A worker's worth his wage, or her wage, right? Go after that. Start high and say, I'm seeking a total cash compensation package in kind of this top area. The employer can always walk you down, but you can't walk them up. Okay. So you never want to give a range of two numbers. You never want to say like 100 to 120, because they're only going to give you 100. You start with I'm seeking a cash compensation package in the 120 area, and then they can walk you down.
So should I if you allow me, so I live here in Maryland, and it is said that effective October 1st, there was a new law passed that require employer to, when asked to provide the pay range in any position they are trying to source for. So I'm wondering, how do you use that information to your advantage when you are approaching an employer? Because usually when people call me, they start battling me for money before even trying to sell me the job. So
if an employer actually shares with you the range, I'm glad to hear that Maryland is doing that now. The reverse of what I said is also true. If they're going ahead and sharing the range, you want to go for the top. And just if they say, what are you looking for? You can say, I'm looking for, presuming that you are, I'm presuming that it makes sense for your background. I'm looking for the top end of your range, and that's it. And then they kind of have an idea that that's where you're at. Again, you might have to negotiate a little bit at the end, because maybe they compare your background to somebody else's and say, look, or they compare your background to the specs of the role and say, look, we were at the top end of the range is really for someone who has this many years of experience, you only have this, or people have this skill versus that skill, you might have to flex a little bit, but you would always want to just go for the high end if you can. Okay.
Yeah, and assume we're not in a, assume that nothing's changed in the world when it comes to pay. So don't go into it thinking, oh, you know, I've heard that salaries are down 15%. You know, I shouldn't expect as much as I used to. Don't think that.
Go high. Always go high, because you never know. You know. And someone asked the question in the chat box, if people are still offering hiring bonuses. Look, employers in general offer hiring bonuses when it's a difficult to fill position, and or if you are the unicorn candidate, you are the candidate that is going to solve their problems, and they feel like they need to negotiate with you that way. Sometimes they will offer hiring bonus, or they'll do it if your compensation is, if your range is higher than what they can afford at the base. Sometimes what they'll do is to sweeten the pot. They'll give you the lower base, but they'll say, hey, we'll bring you on as with a hiring bonus. Now, of course, the advantage to them is that they don't pay increases on that hiring bonus. The hiring bonus is a one-time check. So your base is this, they give you the hiring bonus, but your next raises are on the base that you got. Whereas if you got negotiated a higher base, then your future increases come on top of that. So the hiring bonus is a way for them to be a little more fiscally responsible from their position. Okay, just because of time, I'm gonna skip over number 2 right now. I'm gonna try to answer that person's question in the Google sheet. But as far as number 3, this is somebody basically was talking about the hidden job market. Maybe some of you have already read this while we were talking. And the question is, how can you, because there is such a hidden job market, how do you, sort of find the right job at the time that you need it? And this is tricky. This is absolutely related to what Kimberly was talking about earlier. It's all about networking. And let me make the analogy on the other way. Let's say you were trying to hire a contractor. Okay, you needed a plumber, you needed an electrician, you needed a carpenter, whomever. You only go after that person if you have the need, right? Now, on the other side, the electrician, plumber, or carpenter would love to get your business when they have the need for income. But how else are they going to find you how else are you going to find them unless they've done a good job networking, marketing themselves, advertising themselves to the point where you know of them at the point of your need. And that's the way it always is. And employers are no different. They have an immediate business need, and they're going to leverage their network, which might, by the way, they have to build a network too, right? Employers can't live in a vacuum either. They have to have a stable of people who are out there always thinking about them and always promoting their organization. Same thing for you. The more networking you do, the more you affiliate yourself with groups, the more people know you, like you, and trust you, the more likely it is that when that opportunity comes, you will be top of mind. Okay, so we're kind of rounding the corner on our time here, but I did want to open it up. And KiKi, if you'd like to go ahead and look at the chat box, if there's anything in there that we can address real quickly before we go into the networking rooms.
There's one question here at the end, and I tell you, there's people have pretty much been sticking along with the conversation as we've been going along, so it's been interesting to see. But Pamela here says our group's question was about how to deal with ageism and that mindset.
Yeah, sure.
And I also have a last question, if you don't mind. That has to do with the summary on your resume. Some people are saying that you shouldn't put the summary anymore in the resume. And also, when you use the word cloud, what's the frequency of the word you should consider when you use the word cloud?
Okay, so let's go ahead and address the ageism question first, and then we'll address Jean's question. My standard for the ageism question is, look, only if you are of a certain age, you want to only go back about 20 years. Okay, so these days that would be about to the year 2000-ish. Could be a little less, could be a little bit more, because, you know, look, unfortunately, ageism does exist. I'm not saying that it's legal. I'm not saying that everybody does it, but it is it can be an unconscious bias. And so to help an employer focus on your skills rather than your years of, rather than your age, if you can go back about 20 years, here's what you do. Go back to the place where you really feel like you started to hit your stride relative to your current career path. So for example, let's say you're right now at a vice president level, you're seasoned, you're a leader. You may want to go back to when you started being a director. okay, maybe even a manager, but you would want to not include as much your early career experience. It's just not as helpful anyway to share with people because you've grown since then. If there is experience in your early career that you really, really want to showcase, I recommend at the end of your resume, have a section that says prior experience. And in that section, you would list company and title, no dates, just the experience. And only do that if you really feel like that experience is going to enhance your candidacy. Maybe you worked for a notable company, or you had some sort of jobs in your early career that kind of make the case for the rest of your career field. That would be a reason to do that. The thing and also your education. Don't put your dates in your education, okay? List that you have your degrees, but don't put your dates. Now with LinkedIn, it's a little tricky because with LinkedIn, you can only, with your experience section, which basically is your resume, you are required to put dates. So you can't have that prior experience section without dates. In LinkedIn, go back whatever it is, 20 years, do it, and then stop right there. However, in LinkedIn, you can take your dates off of education, thankfully. Okay, so you can eliminate dates of education. You can't eliminate dates on your experience. Mike or Corliss even, did anybody have any other tips around avoiding age discrimination? Okay.
Right.
Corliss?
Yeah, this is Corliss. In the federal government, they don't care if you're 165 years old. They care about what skills you bring to the table and if you're able to perform those skills. So I will say, just like Shira said, I'll reiterate that, yes, there's individuals who do things that aren't right. But as a whole, the government is really big on putting things in place so that they don't discriminate based on age or any other factors. And one of the things that does this really nicely and that really shows this is that when you are looking at a federal job, the rate that you will get paid is pre-negotiated. So there's actually a range that is negotiated ahead of time that is not based on you or anything else. It's based on the type of skills required for that position. And they've done studies to validate that range. So the government is a really good place to look if you're concerned about ageism in any way because of that kind of pre-negotiated range, which you actually can negotiate after you get a job offer. So you can negotiate within that range.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carlos, for that tip. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up here. Before we do the speed networking, let's just do a couple of housekeeping items here. If you would like to contact any one of us on this call, and Julien, again, who wasn't able to be here, here is our contact information. If you're looking for the past recordings, that would be here in that box. By the way, someone asked earlier if I could put the speed networking, excuse me, the power networking spreadsheet in the chat box, which I did. So if you go all the way to the top of the chat, you'll see that there's the bit.ly link in there. Also wanted to share some other free resources in the community. These are a whole range of other job seeker groups that meet usually on a weekly basis. Oh, I should take this off. I just presented last week to Career Confidence on LinkedIn. And if anybody is interested, they didn't record that particular meeting, but I do have other recordings of my LinkedIn trainings on my website. Please feel free to let me know. I'm happy to share that with you. Always like to kind of wrap up with an inspirational quote from the scriptures. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. God is with you in your job search. Please know, please be encouraged and inspired because God wants to help you in everything that you do. So want to kind of break out into these speed networking meetings, and you're going to get 15 minutes, okay, in your groups to introduce yourself. And when you're introducing yourself, would encourage you to frame it this way. Tell people what your lane is, the thing that you do. What is your career field or your aspiring career field? Then let people know if you have a tribe, and your tribe is the industry or the sectoral affiliation that you have. Maybe you're an association professional, you're in consumer packaged goods, you're in manufacturing, you're in financial services, you're in commercial real estate, you're in the government. Let folks know, because having that tribal connection can be very helpful. And also what a great connection is for you. Finally, you want to share any potential job leads that you can that you have for somebody else. or any professional connections with your colleagues. And by the way, I just realized that I did not answer Jean's question. Let me do that really fast. Jean, you mentioned about having a summary, whether that's important. I'm of the mindset that that's not really important anymore. And the reason is that when people have a summary paragraph, most recruiters kind of gloss over it. And the reason they do is because those summary paragraphs, besides the fact that they're really dense, usually don't really speak as much to the specific job. And people often will say, oh, I have this many years of this, and I have this industry experience, but the employer's not really looking for that. They're looking for the keywords down your resume. So to your question about the word cloud, your word cloud, the keywords in your resume need to match up to that job posting. So for example, the example I always like to use is, you know, you said event planning, they said meeting planning. We know there's a slight distinction, but there's this very similar, use meeting planning, right? Use the phraseology that they used and make sure that that comes up in your resume. So if you do a word cloud, that's what needs to surface. Okay, so that was my little tip. All right, so with that, we hope that you all stay for the networking piece here. I'm gonna go ahead and break you guys out. And after the breakout rooms are done, we're gonna come back to the main room and maybe do any last minute sharing, and then we'll wrap up. So hold tight here while we break you guys up into groups. All right, almost there. All right, have fun in your networking.
I have to head out.
I know, you gotta go move.
Yes. So next time you see me, I will have a different background.
Apparently.
That's going to be very interesting to see. I've got a plan in my head, but we'll see what happens with it. So,
all right. Anyway. Well, blessings to you, KiKi, and your move, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. I presume you think you'll be on?
Oh yeah. Everything will be set up. So thank you very much. Wonderful job. And I hope you have a great weekend.
You too. See you. Bye.
On top of skills and just, you know, be in the know, be an IT person. And I'm nosy and very curious. So it's worked for me, because if not, it's going to be a difficult situation, you know? So yeah.
And yeah, it keeps you sharp, keeps your, yeah, and you're learning something, and you could also network. Are you, which group are you doing the Google class with?
This is actually it's a nonprofit, and it came to me through I think it was through a job posting or a resource or somewhere. I apologize, I don't know, but there's so many wonderful resources out there, even like on YouTube, Khan Academy, and like if you go to Google Suite for Dummies, if you take a minute or two and sit down with it for about an hour and a half and kind of sort through, it's really, really helpful. I know there was an interview I had, which one of the requirements was working with QuickBooks. I've been in the job force a long time, so I'm familiar with it, but not all of the avenues. So I was able to go online and kind of look through and pick up a lot of tidbits, which I didn't feel then so intimidated by. And I was more, confident in being able to say, yes, I feel as though it would be a good fit. These are the skills I can offer you, because I have had interviews, but unfortunately, I honestly, I think I'm nervous, frankly, because I haven't been back in the workforce and job search for like 6 months now. So I'm a little rusty, but this has been a breath of fresh air for me. It's wonderful. The energy and the positivity. I'm very thankful. So I had too much coffee, sorry.
I need my cup. Yeah, that's great about the course, though. That is great. I did hear, I haven't tried it yet myself, but I heard on LinkedIn there is a tab where you can record your interview questions. So then this will give you a good way to practice and then see what you look like online and, revisit it and watch what, how you answered and what your words are. So if you want to, obviously practice and change things up, I'm pretty sure that's a feature on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've never seen that there. I actually do a lot of trainings on LinkedIn. I haven't seen it. If you can find that, that would be great. I should probably, I know LinkedIn keeps changing its features, like they keep adding, features. Maybe this is a new one.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find something in my notes about like where it is.
Yeah, maybe that could be next week's power lesson. You want to share with the group.
Another thing I did, Lena, as cheesy as this might sound, or however you guys take it, I went on Indeed and I did a couple of the assessments just to kind of challenge myself and see where I'm at. It was fun, but also it's ammunition to be able to put that on my resume, to be able to see exactly where I am in the industry and the standards they've set up. I mean, I don't know how, relevant it is, or the rating, so to speak, but it was helpful to me as a person, as an individual, because when you get into that tunnel vision after being in a position for a period of time, you forget what's out there, frankly. So it was helpful to me.
Yeah, I heard, I think it maybe is also High Five, isn't one of those assessments that's actually one of the free ones also.
Okay.
Yeah, but those, that's on my to-do list too. That keeps growing and I just don't get to these things. Don't feel motivated, which is terrible. Yeah, especially because sometimes, in this industry or in this market, like Jennifer, I don't know, it might open up a different type of career since, hospitality right now is tight.
What is it?
The one assessment thing that I've heard of, I think it's called High Five.
High five. Okay. Yeah, I'll look at it.
Sarah, did you say you're also in IT in the Virginia area?
I was, I'm going to date myself here, but 20 years ago, I did A+ CNA, CNE, MCSE, because I was a single mother, unmarried.
Meetings with all these people, review the strategy, for the organization. And then in month 2, I'm going to do these activities and make these small, quick wins, blah, blah, blah. Month 3, I'm going to do that. And everyone loves that. I mean, I actually, made it to a final round and showed that, and they used that onboarding plan to onboard someone else. So that's like a risk you take. So I don't give a paper copy of that out anymore,
Right.
or whatever, or I'll show just the first month. But that really is like a game changer and a source of differentiation, and I always make sure I ask for the job. It sounds like, oh yeah, you did. Like, no, literally you have to ask for the job. And so those are the things that, have worked for me. I've also walked into interviews with, are you guys familiar with brag books?
No.
Brag books are really like a consulting or a sales, person's marketing arsenal. But literally you go in with a binder, let's say of 10 or 20 things that are, specific to your industry or your background, a technology roadmap, you know, a letter saying that you were top salesman for the region, you know, for this year, or whatever it is in your like wheelhouse that basically demonstrates, you know, credibility, you've done something, you know, certification, whatever. And you don't even have to show them the actual binder. You just show them the table of contents. You know, these are the 10 things or 20 things that I've done that specifically relate to this job and show thought leadership, credibility. You know, I've done this all. And that works really well too, because they don't have, you know, they can see it. You know, hey, she did technology roadmaps. Hey, she did budgets. Hey, she did, you know, X, Y, and Z. And that really is a source of differentiation as well. And so, you know, I'm also one of those people that fairly senior. So I do have the 6-8 rounds of, you know, interviews type of thing. And that's its own challenge and, you know, thing. But that's why I think that, you know, I'm tired of doing that. I'm tired of wasting, you know, you say 8 hours, but it's really, you know, weeks of preparation, right? Because you're not going to walk in there, you know, cold, or you're not winging it. You know, you've done your deep dives on the people, on the company, you know, on their issues and problems. You know, you are totally, you know, almost over prepared, right? Well, you know, to go through all that and then to not get the job, it's just, you know, it does a thing on you if you're not careful. And but you have to, you know, go through the preparation, right? So I'm with you. I think that those are ways to, you know, differentiate yourself. And I think that, you know, at a certain point you have to do those. They almost become, or they certainly land you the job. And if you don't do them, you know, it's like the thank you note. Won't necessarily get you the job, but at a certain point, you're no longer in contention. And by the way, I'm the person who asked that first question. And just so you know, there are sweeteners that people are paying. So I know 3 people who've gotten jobs during the pandemic. All 3 of them had, instead of relocation bonuses, they had like work from home bonuses. So $5,000 to outfit your home office. So you can have 2 or 3 monitors. You can have an ergonomic chair. You know, we're going to pay you for additional broadband for your house, so you know you don't have issues with Zoom calls or whatever. So people are getting those, and you know sometimes it's, you know, they pay for. I have a friend who had, you know, had somebody pay, the company paid for them to like literally set up their home office. You know, here's the desk. Here's where we're going to put the desk, so you don't need a ring light, you know, in terms of lighting and all that stuff. So anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 is something that people are paying. And also I have one friend who, believe it or not, a lot of recruiters are having issues having people accept offers. So if you have a job currently and you've been with your firm 10 years and, you know, you are the pedigree candidate, you know, you work at Coke and Pepsi is interested in you, to pull you away from Coke, they are adding sweeteners, you know, to get that to happen. And one of the sweeteners is like, you know, 2 years guaranteed employment or something that makes, you know, makes the risk of you jumping at this point a little bit less. And so, you know, it depends on the role. It depends on, you know, how you fit the role, but there are definite components of an offer letter now as a result of COVID that, you know, people just weren't, you know, even looking at. Training is a big one. You know, if you have if you're a CPA and you need to do X number of credits each year to hold that certification, you know, 10 CEUs a year, you know, that's one thing you can say. I mean, that's a win-win. Hey, you need to pay this $2,000 a year for me to keep my certification or get a new certification, you know, and bake that into the offer letter. So there are all sorts of ways that, you know, I'm afraid of leaving money on the table. So there are all sorts of ways outside of salary, bonuses, or RSUs that you need to be thinking of when it comes down to that salary offer negotiation.
I just want to go back to what Ollie was saying somebody gave me some advice on, and I think it was really good advice. I had ended some interviews and said, is there anything on my resume or that we discussed that you need additional information or you might be concerned about? And I like what we just said in this meeting earlier is maybe what we need to do is start out with what are the measurable goals for this position? And if you know that up front, then you can talk to it without saying, I guess what this guy said to me was you're actually telling them that you might have a problem and it's not coming out the way you expected to come out. And I think starting it off with what are the measurable goals for this position could give you a starting point of what you really want to highlight in the conversation.
Because the other way to answer to end that question and end instead of is there anything, any pink flags or any red flags, is the other way around and say what's most attractive to you about my candidacy. Now that we've had this conversation, what appeals to you the most? What have I highlighted on that you think is going to help move the organization forward? Then that actually gets to solidify in their mind, almost solidifies the buying decision for them to say, yeah, actually you, Dorothy, you mentioned XYZ a few minutes ago, or I like this part of your background or what have you. Then they're actually confirming their choice.
Right. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, welcome back. So I hope that it was a inspirational time for you guys. Now that we've changed things into more of the power lessons and more than just the questions, so I was jumping into a couple of rooms and hearing people sharing really great tips with each other. So let's spend the next couple minutes. I know we're kind of wrapping up here. Any aha moments from your breakout rooms? Any lessons that you shared that you thought were really great, or things that you heard, or just even this whole format in general? What's appealed to you? What's worked? Is anything you want to change? We're constantly evolving this based on the needs of the group. So feel free to just open your mic and share anything that you think is relevant for everyone else.
I was just sharing with my group that just how important, especially if you're a job seeker, to be able to connect with other people. And this is just another venue. And so I've just been encouraging everyone that if you can find a similar group, whether it's people in your field or other job seekers or a field that you're interested in, it's really uplifting and sustaining as you go through this process to be able to have these connections. So my weekly coffee group, they help me out. It keeps me connected to my tribe and going to these other venues. I even attended a webinar on diversity and inclusion, and I went out of my comfort zone and I reached out to all the CEOs on the panel to see if I can have one-on-one conversation. So I have one set up just to have a conversation. So I would encourage you, if you find a free webinar or something that's going on, to do that outreach. It's really, really helped me stay connected.
Ask and you shall receive, right? Any other thoughts?
I'll jump off what Kimberly just said with regard to informational interviews, and it's not something that I've started doing just yet. I'm fairly new in this search, but it was something that it was a tool I employed years ago, reaching out to CEOs and different people in different fields and different organizations, just to ask a lot of questions and and get to know people and increase my network. And it was enormously helpful for my job search at that time. So it's something I will do again.
And you'll be amazed at how many people are actually open to doing informational interviews. Again, particularly if you're referred, right? Or there's some sort of connection. So if somebody refers you in, or maybe like Kimberly said, you know, that you have a connection because you met on a webinar or whatever, but if there's something that ties you to them, oftentimes they're willing to take the 15 minutes even to talk to you. Thanks, Jamie. Anyone else? Any aha moments, lessons learned, tips? All right, well, we're so glad to have you here today. Feel free to join us every week, Friday at 9:15 a.m. Eastern. Feel free to share the link, the registration link with your colleagues, meetup.com/Hire Moment Mastermind. And remember, this recording will be on my website, usually by the end of this evening. So feel free to check back in, and we wish you all a blessed day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Shira.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Iris. Hello, James.
Hi, Shira. How are you?
I am blessed. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. I hope you enjoyed today's meeting. Oh, let me stop.